Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested anonymously by a viewer. Amy plays a cut down against a Tarmogoyf. While this happened, the only cards in the graveyards were creatures and lands. What happens? Okay, so to answer this question, let's observe that cut down says it targets a creature with total power and toughness 5 or less. Now, a spell's targets are checked for legality at 2 specific times. The first is when the spell is cast, and the second is when that spell starts to resolve. These are the only times that the game cares about what the spell is targeting. Based on the information provided in the original problem statement, Tarmogoyf is a 2/3, which means that its total power and toughness is 5. Tarmogoyf is thus a legal target for cut down at both of the times when targets are checked. In fact, it wouldn't become a 3/4 until cut down is put into Amy's graveyard, which happens after all the instructions on the spell have been completed. Accordingly, we can say that Tarmogoyf will be destroyed by cut down completely normally. Of course, the reason this question appeals to me is because of its stark similarity to another famous question right out of the Judge Vault. Let's say that Amy played a lightning bolt against that Tarmogoyf rather than a cut down. I think it's probably pretty well known that the Tarmogoyf would live in this case, but what's the reason for this discrepancy? Unlike cut down, lightning bolt says that it can deal damage to any target, so we definitely don't have to worry about target legality here like we did before. The issue has to do with how the game handles lethal damage. Remember what we said before, that the spell is put into its owner's graveyard after all the steps in its resolution are completed. Well, guess what else doesn't happen until after the spell is finished resolving? That's right, destroying lethally damaged creatures. That happens as a state-based action. So even though there is a brief moment where the Tarmogoyf is a 2/3 after the lightning bolt has dealt the 3 damage but before the bolt goes to Amy's graveyard, the game doesn't mind that at all. Rather, the game waits until after all the steps in the resolution of lightning bolt are completed, including the part where it gets put into the graveyard. Then the game checks to see if there are any lethally damaged creatures. Since the lightning bolt is in the graveyard by the time the game makes this check, the Goyf is a 3/4, so it will survive. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.